Today on the show, Island of Dreams, a world-class amusement park soon to open in Moscow.
It's not simply an amusement park. The Island of Dreams is an entertainment complex where every family member can find entertainment to their liking.
The Moscow Zoo is 155 years old. What is there to see in one of Europe's oldest zoos?
There are currently more than 11,000 animals from around 1,300 species at the zoo.
Museum at the Central Children's Store. Here, you'll feel like a child again.
When many people come here, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I had one of these once. I used to have the same toy." It's so touching. This is exactly the kind of feeling we're trying to bring about here.
It's not Disneyland Paris. It's not Disneyland Florida. It's Moscow's very own Dream Island, which is soon to open before the end of this year. This is Capital Ideas Live, and on this program, we're going to talk all about Moscow for children. I'm Mike Gibson. Let's get started. The Island of Dreams is the first indoor theme park in Russia and the largest one in Europe. It is located in the Nagatsinskaya Poema district, about a 10-minute drive from the Kremlin. The park is 100 hectares in size. The Island of Dreams is divided into two parts, an outdoor area and a covered section. The outdoor area includes a landscape park, sports courts, bike paths, playgrounds, a promenade, and the recently renovated Moscow River embankment. And soon this place will also have a children's sailing school. The total area of the indoor part of the park is 300,000 square meters. You could fit 42 football fields under its massive roof. Why did the designers decide to enclose such a large space?
There are several reasons. The weather in Russia isn't always so pleasant. It rains or snows or is simply overcast for almost 7 to 8 months a year. It's pretty much like in London, if you're from London. If you ask me, the weather in London is much colder than in Moscow. So, the first reason is that we wanted to make this fantasy world comfortable for children and their families year-round. And the second reason is that there are some things that just can't be done at an outdoor theme park. The most distinctive feature of our theme park is that it's entirely indoors. This helps us recreate that magical atmosphere that children see in cartoons. And because it's a theme park, not merely an amusement park, it allows them to immerse themselves into different fantasy worlds. For example, we're going to have the Snow Queen area with a castle, simulated snow, and polar skies. And there will be the Smurfs area, where there's a meticulously recreated Smurfs village, just like in the cartoons. So, children will be completely immersed in the atmosphere of this little cartoon village, with Smurfs, mushrooms, and so on. It's going to be one of the trademarks of our theme park.
Late June saw the completion of the most difficult phase of the construction, the installation of the giant glass domes. So we've just come in through the central entrance, and we're now located in the first magnificent atrium. Further on, we have a series of glass cupolas with 4 zones, in each of which can be found a different city: London, Barcelona, Beverly Hills, and Rome. Let's go and check them out. Under the roof of the Island of Dreams, there are replicas of well-known buildings from 4 cities. There are more than 100 such replicas here. The facades of many of them were decorated by painters and sculptors. So I've just walked through the Barcelona street. There's even a reconstruction of a Gaudi house there. Now we're situated in the central square. This is going to be vast and beautiful, with fountains and cafes and beautiful spaces to walk. There's even a concert hall on one side and a cinema on the other. But the most interesting thing here is above us, this vast glass dome, which is a few times bigger than the glass dome of the Reichstag in Berlin and considerably larger than Lafayette in Paris. The size of the central dome is nearly 9,000 square meters, and its height is 35 meters. It took almost a year and a half to design, manufacture, and install this structure. So now we're located at the most interesting place of all. Behind me is the entrance to the theme park, but we can't go in there yet because the creators of this project want to tease us a little bit. They're not going to tell us what exactly the rides are and which attractions they plan to have until the opening. So, after the opening, you need to come and discover for yourselves. The price of admission to the theme park is still undecided, but the promenade and landscape park will be open to everyone at no charge.
The Island of Dreams isn't only an amusement park. It's an entertainment complex where every family member can find entertainment to their liking. Rides for children, thrill rides for grown-ups, concerts, discos, and so on. I'd been working on the design of this project for more than 10 years before I started its construction. Some of the most successful amusement parks can be found within city limits, and they fit quite well within a mega-city infrastructure. Take, for example, Disneyland in Tokyo and Universal Wonderland in Osaka, or Latte World in Seoul. It's also located in the city center. And of course, if a city has a theme park, it's going to attract more tourists. People are more enthusiastic about coming there, and they spend more time there. Let's say they spend half a day at the theme park. Then they can spend the rest of the day walking around the city. This way, the city draws in more tourists.
There are different ways to get to the Island of Dreams. You can take the metro. The nearest station, Technopark, is just a minute's walk from the park. Or you can drive there. One of Moscow's main traffic routes, the Third Ring Road, is not far from the theme park. And soon there will be a new bridge near the Island of Dreams, which will cross one of the Moscow River's inlets called Kazhukovsky Pond. This bridge will connect multiple city districts and make getting to the park that much easier. The Island of Dreams is expected to welcome up to 50 million visitors every year. According to experts, this will increase the flow of tourists to the Russian capital by 16%. The Island of Dreams' grand opening is planned for the end of this year. One of the oldest zoos in Europe is having an anniversary. This year, the Moscow Zoo is going to be 155 years old. This iconic and very famous tower behind me is known even to me, just like all the kids know it. The famous tower at the Moscow Zoo's main entrance was built in the 1990s. Today, it's one of Moscow's main attractions for children. The Moscow Zoo is located near the city centre, next to the Garden Ring in the Presnya district. The best way to get to the zoo is via the metro. The nearest stations, Barrikadna and Krasnopresnenska, are a 2-minute walk from the main entrance. I've invited Moscow Zoo's honoured head of research, Vladimir Frolov, to tell us about the biggest attractions of the zoo, the spots where you should definitely bring your little ones.
There are currently more than 11,000 animals from about 1,300 species at the zoo. Our collection is truly significant. We're in 5th place in Europe when it comes to the number of animals we have here.
What are the most interesting animals we can visit here?
The most interesting ones this year are the giant pandas. They came to us straight from China. It took us 3 years of negotiations to make this happen.
There's a reason why the 2 giant pandas, a male and female, Ju-Yi and Ding-Ding, were brought to Russia this year. In 2019, Russia and China are celebrating the 70th anniversary of their diplomatic relations.
We wouldn't have been able to get these pandas if it weren't for the friendship between our 2 nations. And thanks to the wisdom of our leaders, it's a great honor for us, especially since this year saw the anniversary of diplomatic relations between our countries. Of course, for us, it's a real honor, and we're immensely grateful for this opportunity to participate in a research program aimed at preserving such a beautiful, endangered species as the giant panda.
The giant panda is on the red list of threatened species, where it's listed as a vulnerable species. Giant pandas live only in some provinces of China, as well as in Tibet. These unusual bears settled in the newly upgraded Chinese fauna complex. And here is another spotted inhabitant of the zoo, the famous Samson the giraffe.
He's one of the most popular animals among our visitors, especially children. A giraffe is a giraffe. He's tall, and children easily recognize him from books and cartoons. In summer, Samson lives here, and in winter, he stays over there in that building.
Can you tell us some interesting things about giraffes?
Of course, they have very strong hearts and large arteries to pump their blood all the way up to the head. And if we need to restrain him so that our vets can treat him, we have to make sure that his head always stays elevated. Even when he sleeps, his head must stay above his torso all the time. If it's lowered, he may die.
The Moscow Zoo has many birds, everything from parrots to large predatory sea eagles. I see a really interesting bird behind us, very specific to Russia. Could you tell us something about that?
Yes, this is a truly interesting and rare bird. It's called Steller's sea eagle. In our country, they live only in the Far East, within a pretty small habitat. What's interesting about this species is that the very first time it was bred in captivity was in 1987, right here in the Moscow Zoo. And the Moscow Zoo maintains an international breed registry of this species. All the birds from different zoos around the world are registered in our breed registry. Having this information is crucial to prevent inbreeding, to know exactly where each male and each female was bred, and which zoo is better for them to be sent to. The Moscow Zoo is also actively involved in the protection of these birds. That's why I wanted to show them to you.
In Russian, it's called white-shouldered eagle, and it's obvious why. But in English, it's called sea eagle. Can you tell us why the difference?
Because they live along sea coasts and the banks of large rivers where they feed mainly on fish.
Elephants are also very popular among visitors. There's an entire family of elephants in the Moscow Zoo, a father, a mother, and their son and daughter. During the warm months, they stay in the outdoor enclosure all the time, and in winter, they're housed in an indoor pavilion.
They can eat up to 120 kilograms of different kinds of food, such as hay, branches, and vegetables. I should note that these ones are Asian elephants. Only male Asian elephants have tusks. Unlike African elephants, where both males and females have tusks. It's also very important for all elephants to have enough sand, as they sometimes take sand baths. They scoop up some sand and toss it onto their backs. In Africa and tropical Asia, they do this to chase away parasitic insects. And they keep doing the same thing here, following their instincts. They also love to swim. There's a pool here, and the little one loves to go swimming in it. And his parents love the water too.
The Moscow Zoo is divided into two parts. To walk to the second one, you need to cross a pedestrian bridge.
We're at the enclosure with polar bears. We have two of them here. They were both born in the wild and brought here back in 1991. They're quite old already. The one lying by the snow pile is the male. His name is Wrangel. And the one over there, basking in the sun, is the female. They've had many cubs over the years. And we've sent these cubs to different zoos or exchanged them for some other animals. Zoos never sell their animals to each other. They just give them away for free or exchange them. Today, trading in wild animals is considered to be a bad thing, and zoos never practice that. There's also an international polar bear breeding program, and there's an international breeding registry of polar bears.
What kinds of living conditions are provided for them here?
Polar bears need a pool because they like swimming. We have a pool here. Before we pump water into the pool, we filter it, treat it with ozone, and add a little salt. And as you can see, we also have a special snowmaking machine. Wrangel is lying right next to it now. The snow we make allows the bears to cool down. They also love playing in it, especially the young cubs. They like rolling down from the top of the snow pile and even digging little holes in it.
This summer, the Children's Zoo was reopened after a complete remodeling. This is a special area for the youngest visitors. The last time this part of the zoo was renovated was back in 1998. This time, its design was completely rethought based on the best practices of leading European zoos. Over the last 2 years, the look of the Children's Zoo has entirely changed. Now it has a large petting area where children can get to know and even walk right up close and pet some domestic animals.
Our children's zoo has different kinds of domestic animals, such as chickens, geese, sheep, and cows. Its purpose is to let city children get to know and touch real animals.
Yeah, I can see it right next to us. That's awesome.
Yes, you can approach the animals and actually pet them.
Looks like they're very curious and eager to meet us. Are these some kinds of special animals?
Yes, they were selected specifically for the petting zoo because they're very peaceful and not aggressive at all.
As in any other zoo, it's forbidden to feed the animals with food bought from outside. If you come to the zoo, please obey this rule, because wild animals don't eat store-bought food. They need specially prepared food, and if you want to feed the animals in the petting area or birds in the pond, you can buy them some food from special vending machines located throughout the zoo. The new children's zoo is now home to more than 200 animals, which is 5 times more than before the remodeling. Now it also has information stands, and some of them are interactive. By using them, children can find out what part of the world a certain species comes from. The new design of the children's zoo also includes lots of benches, a new playground, and even a climbing wall. So now we have the opportunity to see the oldest animal in the Moscow Zoo. Please meet the Crocodile Saturn. He was born in the United States, and in 1938 he was sent to the Berlin Zoo. After the war, he was found in the British sector of Berlin and sent to the Soviet Union. And since then, he's been living here in the Moscow Zoo. Saturn the Alligator even has his own Wikipedia page. Not every animal has one. You can find him in the terrarium. The Moscow Zoo even has a unique hotel for insects. In Moscow Zoo at the beginning of August opened a very special and unique hotel for lonely bees. These are bees that have lost their way and cannot find their hive. It's a special place. The bees can select any room they want, and it's all safe because there's a special net protecting them from hungry birds. I recommend arriving at the Moscow Zoo before noon. During that time, there are not too many visitors, and you can easily walk around and see all the animals. The zoo offers group tours, both in English and Russian. It's open year-round. In winter, many animals are kept in indoor enclosures. The zoo welcomes about 3 million visitors every year.
It's our 4th time here this week, all because of the kids. Our oldest one just loves animals. I think coming here helps them develop empathy, curiosity, and real interest. Over time, the zoo is becoming more and more adapted to the needs of children. And you can even buy some healthy food here now, not just snacks and candy. It's our first time here, and we like it so much. We're not from Moscow, by the way. We came here on vacation. We like the elephants and tigers, the lions, and we just love the bears.
Many foreigners live and work in Moscow. Some of them come here with children. For them, and for all other children, Syed Nasser Tabai translates and publishes books in Moscow. He has lived in the Russian capital for almost 30 years already. A physicist by education, he chose the humanities here. Today, Syed Nasser Tabai is an Iranian-Russian writer, publisher, and social activist. Here in Moscow, he's found not just a successful job, but also a loving family.
They're right when they say that big cities are for young people. But young is a relative term. You can feel young even when you're 80. You can stay fit and so on. It's actually very important. For me personally, Moscow is a very comfortable place to live.
Currently, Mr. Tabai heads the Russian publishing house Sadra. He's also the vice president of the Islamic Culture Research Foundation. Mr. Tabai's publishing house releases many books for children.
We have this children's book where we put special emphasis on the myths of ancient Persia. I think it would be interesting for many people here to learn about the epic poem Shahnameh. Ferdowsi wrote it 1,000 years ago. In Iran, it's often adapted for different ages. We took 10 of those illustrated books and translated them into Russian. And it turned out just great. I'd call it a true masterpiece. I showed it to an Iranian publisher, and he said that even they wouldn't be able to do any better. We collaborated with many of our colleagues. They helped us with both the text and the illustrations, and we obtained all the possible licenses to get all the materials we needed.
This collection has already won multiple awards from the Special International Relations Commission of the Russian Foreign Ministry for UNESCO. Another children's book, which Mr. Tabai is also very proud of, is called Shekaristan. That's the name of the town from one of the stories included in this book. Shekaristan is a collection of original Persian tales, but those tales are not about fairies or magic. They're about different human qualities such as greed, generosity, deception, mercifulness, stupidity, or cunning.
Shekaristan means Sugarland in Persian. It has many funny characters. All the stories are very interesting and insightful. Each book teaches children something, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what's good and what's bad. And they have corresponding characters, good and bad. And every time, the bad guy gets into some trouble.
Children's books, novels, books on science, philosophy and religion. Over the last 6 years, the Sadra Publishing House has translated into Russian and reprinted more than 300 books. And Nassar Tabai himself has won the Moscow government's Breakthrough of the Year award as Foreign Entrepreneur of the Year. Just like 60 years ago, one of Moscow's biggest attractions for children is the Central Children's Store on Lubyanka. The holy grail to every Soviet child, it was constructed in 1957 based on a design by the renowned architect Alexei Dushkin. In 2008, the Central Children's Store was closed for major remodeling. 7 years later, in 2015, it reopened its doors to young customers.
During the reconstruction of the building, we did our best to preserve the original front wall. Its architect, Alexei Dushkin, came up with a very interesting design. He designed these huge arches that can be seen both from outside the building and inside its main atrium. But we did change quite a lot. For example, we've expanded the main atrium. It used to be at this very spot. It's actually the crossing of several streets. This gallery leads from the Kremlin to Kuznetsky Most. But the dome of this atrium went from the second floor on up to the third floor. It wasn't very high. Now the dome is at the level of the seventh floor. It's decorated with images created by the famous Russian artist Bilibin, who created illustrations for many Russian fairy tales. The old atrium didn't have such decorations, but we've kept and restored the old stand lamps.
Are they old?
Yes, they're old. And what's more, they were handmade by the employees of this store back in the 1960s.
However, the historical clock that used to decorate the atrium had to be replaced and sent to a museum. A new clock was built in its place, with an open design and a larger size to match the size of the new atrium. And if you go up to the third or fourth floor, you can take a closer look at the inner workings of this giant clock. The style of the atrium's interiors is based on the Stalinist Empire style. The renovated Central Children's Store also has its own museum, the Museum of Childhood. Its showpieces are different toys that used to be sold in this legendary toy store down through the years.
We hope that maybe some people would be willing to share with us some interesting, emotional stories of how they visited the children's world when they were children. And entirely unexpected to us, thousands of people responded and donated thousands of toys. It was so touching to receive this kind of response. Unfortunately, many of the toys were in bad condition. Some of them were almost new, but others showed signs of being played with by several generations of children or being stored away for years in an attic or garage. But still, we gratefully accepted them all. And we were able to repair many of those toys. Some of them are from the 60s or 70s, while others are newer. When some people come here, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I had one of these once. I used to have this same toy." It's so touching. This is exactly the kind of feeling we're trying to bring about here.
Today, the Central Children's Store is not just a collection of shops that sell dozens of brands of toys and children's clothes. It's also an entertainment centre for children of all ages, with play spaces for toddlers, the so-called town of professions for older children, and of course, the latest computer games. Here we are on the roof of the Central Kids Store on Lubyanka, and behind me is a wonderful view of Moscow. In this program, we've tried to tell you all about the things you can do with your kids in Moscow, and I hope you've really enjoyed it. I'm Mike Gibson. This is the program Capital Ideas Life. See you next time.